13. Protect your child's future at every stage of life. Go to safercar.gov/the right seat. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
SportsTalk New York. You ready to go in the air? I put the hose in my
Hey,
Ready?
do these work?
Yeah, they should.
Okay.
You can plug in digital stages in the U.S. A word of warning. Beware of unqualified photographers who won't fill out your paperwork. They will ruin your chances for legal status forever. Instead, talk to a licensed immigration practitioner. Ask questions and report your target who is trying to take advantage of you or your family. Learn go to www.stopnotarialfraud.org.
What do I say? So grateful I insisted on an eye exam, but I noticed him struggling with the words on the page. We found out Dad has age-related macular degeneration, or AMD. Fortunately, the doctor caught it in time for treatment. So Dad, instead of worrying, protect yourself and your loved ones. Call the foundation for joining us today at 1-800-WELLNESS or it's insane.
Hey, Dad, I thought you were the radon test guys. The who test guys? Didn't you see the paper Sunday? The Surgeon General issued another lung cancer warning. Oh, like the cigarette warning? Yeah, they're saying we have to get our houses tested for radon.
You ready?
Ready to go.
So that's because radon is an odorless, colorless, tasteless gas that seeps into your house from underground. Does this story have a happy ending? Yeah. Maybe you're not happier once you get your house tested.
This is WGBB AM 1240 and W240 DFFM 95.9 Freeport, New York.
The views expressed in the following program do not necessarily represent those of the staff, management, or owners of WGBB. Live from the WGBB studios in New York. This is SportsTalk New York.
And that's right, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you once again for joining me here on Sports Talk New York, right here on WGBB. It's a beautiful May 23rd, 2021, just after 9 o'clock here, and we got a lot to get into tonight. We're going to have a lot of baseball talk with the Mets and the Yankees, and a lot of basketball talk with the Knicks playing their first playoff game in 8 years tonight. But before we get into that, we're going to have a special guest on the line, and that is Colin Stevenson from Newsday. He covers the Rangers and all things NHL. And you can follow him on Twitter, actually, at Colin S. Newsday on Twitter. And Colin, thanks for joining us tonight. How are you doing? Oh, not a problem at all. And, I'm sure you've been having a good time watching a lot of these hockey playoff games so far. A lot of exciting series, including, out west we've had Colorado just wrap up earlier today against St. Louis. Before we get into the Islanders, has anything else in the NHL playoffs really stood out to you? We've got a couple of great series going on up in Canada right now, and anything else that's catching your eye in these early hockey playoffs?
Well, I tell you, guys get suspended. Everybody else is suspended left, right, center. I find that to be no,
And I, even Vegas, was better. Vegas could do funky team, obviously, not, well, they don't have a lot they had a lot of fun with it. Yeah, there's a lot of fun. You can't, check out.
It's so true. It's got to be the biggest disparity between regular season and playoff games that we have in at least the four major sports. But yeah, there's few things better than playoff hockey. And going back to that Minnesota series too, from a Rangers fan's perspective, like myself, and for you, who's someone who's very familiar with the Rangers over the last few years, there's definitely a little bit of of rooting interest for guys like Zuccarello and Cam Talbot being on that team. So it's always it's always nice to see a little spunk out of that Minnesota team too. But they definitely got a big hill to climb in that great Vegas team. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Especially if they keep coming along, and like you said, this Kaprasov kid just jumps off the page as soon as you see him. So a lot of fun going out there out west. But you've been covering the Islanders for this first round. So what are your early takes on this series? I know it's not so much early anymore. We're 4 games into this 7-game series. They've split the first 4. We've seen the good side and bad side out of Varlamov in net. We've seen really good stuff out of Sorokin that they've put him in games 1 and 4. What are your feelings coming out of these first 4? What major takes do you have? From Barry Trotz's decisions and everything like that from these first 4 games. No doubt about it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree. I agree. And Josh Bailey's one of those guys that always stands out to me, and I just feel like he does everything right and is just very underappreciated player, and is really one of the guys on that line that really keeps it going. And no doubt about it. And I also think too one of the things we've seen at least early on in the series, um, the Lou Lamoriello going out and picking up a guy like Palmieri, who has that playoff experience, can come out and step right in the lineup and contribute in a big way. He scored the 2 goals in that first game, and he's constantly in the mix. He was involved in that big melee they had in game 3, the first game of the Coliseum. So there's a lot of emotions and everything, a lot going on in this series right now. Especially getting back to those tense moments too. I heard coming out of the press conferences today and yesterday that the Penguins coach Mike Sullivan was really complaining about the referees not making calls and it's seemingly inferring that they were favoring the Islanders. What do you think about that? I mean, especially most fans, even casual fans, would say that the Penguins get more calls than any team, going back to Crosby and all that. What do you think about their coach coming out and publicly complaining and chastising the referees? Mm-hmm. Wow. Mm-hmm.
they have young being penalized so heavily so I'm actually agree with this point yeah, and after, quite frankly, after three, but pretty easy, all 10 games in a night, it's just we expect that. Right off the bat. So I don't know, I can't understand that call, but I understand trying to tell the referees we're trying to put them on by the referees.
Exactly. Just put that little thought in their head because even if it makes one call go their way, it was worth him going out of his way to say it. So it's just a case of a coach sticking up for his team during the playoffs, and with these coaches too. We got two coaches in this series with Stanley Cup resumes, two teams that have extensive playoff resumes themselves. Now we're through four games. We got the best of three really for these next three. Who do you got coming out of this series?
I think, it's always easy to see the and really you can come to I don't
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's a 2-1. But he made it like and even though he went great, and I hope he was great for the city. You look at his numbers, back up and down. But I thought that my official pick for Patriots six. That's still alive for that. So I'm going to stick with that pick. And again, mostly this down outside of what his numbers are 43 after and he went to make it good. But I have if he has to come back in.
Yeah, I totally agree. And just the fact that they have Sorokin, who's playing very well now, and Varlamov, who, just like you said, he stopped 43 out of 45 shots in Game 2. And really, that third period, he stood on his head to keep that a one-goal game. He let in the one soft goal, which I totally agree with you, was a very, it must be an infuriating goal if you're an Islander fan to watch. But he really kept them in that third period and had that bad Game 3. But hey, it's 2-2 right now, and I do agree with you. I'm taking the Islanders in this series. I think but I do think it's going to go 7. I think this series has 7 written all over it right now because even if Pittsburgh goes down, I think they still got one last right hook left in them, and that's it's but you can't argue either way. It's going to be a great finish up to this series. But before I let you get out of here, Colin, because I really appreciate you spending here your Sunday evening here, and I'm sorry to interrupt you watching the Knick game with your son. But well, the way it's looking right now, we might have overtime, so you might not miss the whole thing. Um, and so I just want to touch on the Rangers too. You're one of the guys that covers the Rangers. I always love going to your Twitter and seeing your take on them and everything that you have to write about them as well. So on this date, actually 3 years ago was the day the Rangers hired David Quinn. Where are we at right now in the Rangers head coach search? Obviously, a couple of weeks ago, they fired Gordon. They fired John Davidson. So they promoted Chris Drury to both those positions, team president and general manager. Where are we at right now in this head coach search?
I think at this point, we're still early because Chris Drury is general manager. don't think he's going to do anything intentionally to scratch that. It's been reported that the opposition to Gerard Gallant, who is, I guess, still on contract with Vegas. So Gallant was defeated for defensive challenge in one point. So I think they want to get that process started. And got commission there are other people that want to talk to you.
Absolutely.
And mostly the guys who Europe.
That that's true. It's true. Oh wow. Yeah, I totally agree with that. The guy that jumps off to me is John Tortorella. I was always a fan of Torts. It always really upset me when the Rangers fired him a few years back after the 12-13 season. Um, I would love to see Torts brought back, but I'm comfortable with any decision that Drury makes. I would love to see Bob Hartley come in. So it's a really interesting mix they have because just like you said, David Quinn was a nice guy. I don't know if he necessarily deserved to be fired this year. If it was me, I might have given him another year to see if he could do it. But the Rangers are in win now mode, and if you're in win now mode, you don't want a coach coaching his first playoff game. You want a guy that's been there and has done it and knows how to lead these young men to that to the playoffs and through the playoffs, and to get there. Very true. Very true. Now, actually,
Not necessarily that the owner's going to make the call, but I think whoever you want to hire, present it to the owner and say, yeah, okay, this works.
now now that you mentioned the owner, do you think that he made the right call in getting rid of pretty much everybody at the top, or would you have let it play out another year?
He did an interview with another publication, and I read that. The move, if you're asking me my opinion, I thought the move was really impressive. But he had the right to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he hires people, and pays him a lot of money, and if he wants to fire people and hire somebody else, that's his prerogative. I think, the timing was certainly weird to fire the president and general manager with 3 games left in the regular season and actually on a game day.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed a little, different. Um, was it the right move? I don't. It's not for me to say. That'll. What happens after this will determine that. But it's not like it's not. So, I'm not. I'm not saying that. He has the right to do that if he wishes. And listen, all of these guys are in a business where they understand that they can get fired at any time. That's kind of the nature of business. They're all okay. Davidson, was out of work for like 2 weeks. He ended up getting his old job back in Columbus. And as it happens, I think David Quinn. I don't know. I mean, I would imagine that David's going to be a candidate. He's one of the great coach too, so he might be a candidate for that job as well. Not that he's necessarily going to get it. I'm not saying that he will, but I think those guys will be the other two guys will get for it, and so I think will be okay. And I think they're going to work again. So I think at the end of the day, something that the owner decided needed to happen when it did. And, now the pressure's on Christopher to find the right guy and to get the Rangers to take the next step.
Yeah, that's very true. Very true. And one last thing before I let you go, the Rangers are going to have a little bit of cap room coming up this summer. A lot of people are obviously the Jack Eichel speculations from Buffalo. We've heard Matthew Tkachuk brought up from Calgary. Plenty of different names have popped up over the course of the last couple of weeks from Ranger fans. Even Alexander Barkov from down in Florida, his name is being brought up. I don't know how realistic that is. But if you were thinking if the Rangers are going big fish hunting this offseason, is there any name that pops out as more realistic than any of the others we've brought up?
I don't know. Realistic, um, I'm not quite sure. The names that you mentioned, right? There's two pitch options. Certainly would love to have either one of them. In fact,
True.
one of those guys is exactly what I think they would want.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they have done. They want a big forward. He plays on the edge. He's physical and chippy and can play as well. And that's a good shot, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if you could get one of those guys, then of course that would be ideal. But I don't know. I don't know that one of those guys is gonna. Calgary, you want to trade a good shot.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
I don't really understand how that would be possible. I don't see that. Now, the Jack Eichel thing is a different thing. I think that he is unhappy, and I think he wants to leave. At some point, Buffalo is going to have to look into that. So, he's out there, and he's potentially gettable. But if you're a Ranger, I think, this is a guy who's, he actually hasn't had surgery, but he missed most of the season with a neck injury. What's it going to cost you to get him? And, we have to give up. I'm not sure that this is the right fit. And if you were going to, go after him, why would you fire his college coach?
That's a good point too.
He played the David Quinn. If you were going to, if you were bound and determined to go get Jack Eichel, you could have kept David Quinn. So,
Very true.
I don't know again how realistic that is. If you're Buffalo, do you want to trade Jack Eichel to the New York Rangers, or would you prefer to trade him out west somewhere, where you only have to see it twice a year? So I don't know how realistic it is for them to get any of them, but I think what they have to do is they have to find somebody somewhere who can play forward and is going to put in more of a straight line game and go with that and is going to hit people and might drop the ball on occasion. So if you can find that guy, if you can find Tom Wilson lookalike. I know Tom Wilson's name is not around at Rangers channel, but if you can find that guy, I think that's the guy that every team is looking for. And if they can find some kind of approximation of that guy, I think that's a great guy.
Yes, very true. And if that guy could happen to win face-offs too, that'd be the cherry on top.
That would be the cherry on top.
Well, Colin Stevenson, I want to thank you very much for taking time in your Sunday night to spend with me tonight talking a little hockey. If you want to follow Colin, you can follow him on Twitter at Colin S. Newsday. Colin, thanks again and have a great night.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me. Until next, right?
You got that right. We're down 0-1, but that doesn't mean the series is over.
All right.
All right. Have a good one, Colin.
All right. Good night now.
You too. All right, and with that, we're going to take our first break of the day, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll be right back. Thanks for sticking around.
You're listening to SportsTalk New York. Tune in every Sunday morning on Long Island's WGBB. Broadcasting on 95.9 FM and 1240 AM. Or listen live online at WGBBradio.com. Tonight, the New York Liberty stepping over a state-of-the-art field with old-fashioned gym for Long Island residents for 3 years. Specialists in sports medicine and country football can be reached at 516-741-SPEECH or online at countryfootball.com. Stay connected to Sports Talk New York on WGBB by following us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at WGBB Sports Talk. Unflippable, unflappable, unreadable. The Gustbuster is the only umbrella that won't serve inside out, rip, tear, or leak, capable of withstanding winds over 55 miles per hour. All of our umbrellas are constructed of the finest quality materials and backed by a limited lifetime guarantee. What are you waiting for? Visit Gustbuster.com and get your Gustbuster today. You're listening to Sports Talk New York on Long Island's WGBB. And now, back to the show.
And that's right, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back once again on Sports Talk Sports Talk New York. I'm sorry about that. Old habits die hard. Sports Talk New York, right here on WGBB, Long Island's oldest radio station. I want to thank once again Colin Stevenson for joining me here. Had a great conversation with him about hockey in the first half of the show. We're going to be talking about a lot of other stuff, but right now I just want to get into this day in sports history. This day in sports history, on May 23rd, 1948, Joe DiMaggio homers in 3 consecutive at-bats, including 2 off Hall of Famer Bob Feller, as the Yankees beat Cleveland 6-5 in the first half of a doubleheader. On this day, May 23rd, 1981, the New York Islanders celebrated less than 24 hours after winning their second straight Stanley Cup championship with a parade on Hempstead Turnpike in Nassau County with a turnout of over 30,000 people that stretched over a mile long down Hempstead Turnpike. May 23rd, 1997, after a Wayne Gretzky hat trick propelled the Rangers to a 5-4 win in the previous game, the Rangers dropped Game 4 of the Eastern Conference Final at Madison Square Garden on a late Eric Lindros power play goal. They lose that game 3-2. They would drop that series in 5. And finally, on this day, May 23rd, 1998, after being acquired from the Mets in a blockbuster trade the day before, Mike Piazza makes his Mets debut against the Brewers at Shea Stadium, going 1-for-4 with a double off Jeff Juden, as Al Leiter and the Mets win the game, as Leiter throws a 4-hit shutout, and the Mets win 3-0 at Shea Stadium. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is this day in sports history. Well, such a great time so far, as there had to be a little bit of rain on the parade, though. Yesterday we got a Nets win in the playoffs against Boston, as the Nets took their first game. They had an up and down first half. They ended up really running away with it in the second half. It was only the 9th time all season that Harden, Durant, and Kyrie Irving were on the court for the same game, which is just astonishing, really, when you think about it. But the Nets came up. They beat Boston yesterday. But the Knicks, in their first playoff in action in 8 years, as Colin Stevenson said, he was watching it with his son. I was sitting here watching it in the studio. Many others were just like me, sitting home watching the Knicks play their first game, their first playoff game in over 8 years. They took a 107-105 loss at the Garden. Really had a couple of chances to put this game away late. Just could not do it. You had some standout performers, but guys that also really struggled, like Julius Randle. First playoff game as a Knick, did not look good. 6 of 23 from the field, 15 points. He had 12 rebounds, but him and Barrett. Barrett 6 of 15, so not as bad, but 14 points, 1 assist, 11 rebounds. Really not a good, from the guys who the Knicks have really been leaning on, coming down this stretch here, this stretch run where the Knicks really played well. And a lot of people said the second half was going to be hard for the Knicks. They ratcheted their games up quite a bit going down the stretch there, and just couldn't get it done in this one, though. Alec Burks, though, great job off the bench. 27 points, 4 assists, 3 rebounds, 9 of 13 from the field. Derrick Rose played 37 minutes off the bench. 17 points, 5 assists, 5 rebounds. Quickly got a lot of action. Taj Gibson was in there a lot. Obi Toppin was looking real good. Elfrid Payton, I don't even know why he's starting at this point. No disrespect to Elfrid Payton. A very good player, very good defensive player. But he only played 8 minutes in this game, and then they let the other guards just take over from there. Alec Burks really stole the show, and you can't take anything away from Derrick Rose. Reggie Bullock looked pretty good, although he was only 3 for 9, got 18 minutes. Nerlens Noel, that guy just keeps coming to play. 6 points, 3 rebounds in 23 minutes, 2 of 3 from the field. So the Knicks, the thing that really sunk the Knicks too was early on. They just could not shoot the ball. They were 7 for 23 in the first quarter, down 24-16. They started hot in the second quarter, hitting 7 of their first 9 shots. They ended up winning that second quarter, 34-28. They won the third quarter as well, but they fell apart in the fourth quarter. They allowed 36 points after only allowing 19 in the third, so exactly double. And that's what cost them the game. A late shot by Trae Young, who was giving it to the Knicks crowd. He was giving it to the Knicks faithful. He had 32 points, 10 assists, 7 rebounds. That kid is a star. When you look at that, look at his first playoff start compared to R.J. Barrett, it's definitely, it was a slam dunk that Trae Young had had hit the better night, no doubt about it. But R.J. Barrett, and the Knicks, they're still going to have a chance to come back. Best of 7. This isn't like the old days where it was best of 5. The Knicks still have a chance. They really had the jitters, and it was amazing to see a jam-packed Madison Square Garden. The people were going nuts. They were really giving it to Trae Young. They were giving it and it's kind of annoying because they gave Trae Young all the motivation to shove it down their throat when they were starting with an F Trae Young chant, and that definitely didn't go over well with him. But unfortunately, it possibly motivated him. And the last thing you want to do for a guy with Trae Young's talent is give him extra motivation to beat you, because he is just a hell of a player. And the Knicks stayed in there. Literally, they didn't lose this game until there was 0.9 seconds left. They still had a shot to get the ball to Julius to get the last shot off. Didn't fall. So it was a tough way to lose, especially when the Knicks, it looked like a couple of times they'd put it away. A couple of times they were up 103-100, they blew that. They were up 105-103, they blew that. They just kept getting an emotion where you started thinking to yourself that they were going to be able to pull away, and just weren't able to seal the deal this time around, unfortunately, for the Knicks today. But you know what? Like we said earlier, there's a 7-game series. They had to get the jitters out of there. I mean, not to mention, too, this is the first time they've played in front of a jam-packed building, much less a playoff game, in probably over a year. I mean, it has to be a good 14, 15 months since the last time the Knicks played in front of 18,000 at Madison Square Garden. So the juices were flowing. You everything was, especially for a guy like R.J. Barrett. R.J. Barrett tonight became the youngest Knick player to ever start a playoff game. 20 years old. Amon Shumpert back in 2012 was the youngest until tonight, where he was 21. So RJ really, he's just a young kid and he's getting his first playoff action. A lot of these guys, it was great to see Quickly out there. Quickly had a good presence. You could tell when Quickly and Toppin and Rose and that second unit were out there. That's what really got them back in the game. And it's funny too, because as soon as they made the switch at the beginning of the second quarter, because Randall played the entire first quarter, so I think they were trying to ride their horse a little bit too much. Randall deserves it too. He had a hell of a season. Anytime you come out there and you average 24 points, 10 rebounds, and 6 assists in a game, which hadn't been done by the Knicks in over 30 years, closer to 40. I think since the '82 season, they said. I think it was 82. So it's been a really long time since the Knicks have had anybody with approaching those numbers. You just have to say, okay, Game 2 is right around the corner. You just got to reset and hope that Julius can reset and this doesn't start putting more pressure on him. Same thing with RJ. And you just got to hope that they go out there and get the job done in Game 2, because Tom Thibodeau is a great coach. He had this team, it's unlike a Thibodeau team to go out there and give up almost 40 points in a quarter, much less in the fourth quarter where they really clamped down. So, Thibodeau's really going to knock that into their heads over the next couple of days until Wednesday night's game. And that's also at the Garden, so the Knicks still have a chance to split that first two. If they could get that second game, which, this is the first game that they've lost to Atlanta all season, the Knicks being the 4 seed, the Hawks being the 5 seed. They both finished 41 and 31. Both very good, NBA teams for the records and the way they've played this season. The Knicks ended up having the better record against the Hawks, but that wasn't even the tiebreaker. The tiebreaker was the fact that the Knicks had the better conference record overall. So the Knicks got the nod as the 4 seed, and Miami fell in at 6. These guys fall in at 5. So Miami, though, was right on the Knicks' heels until they ended up losing that last game to finish 40 and 32 instead of 41 and 31 like the other two. So it was a tight race down to the end. The Knicks ended up getting the nod. And now you just got to hope that Tom Thibodeau rallies his troops and that they come back even stronger in Game 2. And that's the test of the Knicks now. Are they going to be a team that rolls over? They haven't been all season. This has been a team that they've lost so many heartbreakers this year. A right hook, like I was saying earlier, about the Islanders series to Colin Stevenson. The Islanders and the Penguins, they have delivered right hooks and taken them and kept going throughout this series in the playoffs. And that's how a playoff series is. You got to be able to take one and keep rolling, and that's how the Knicks are right now. You just took one. You took a tough one. Trae Young put a dagger through your heart, where it looked like all they had to do was make one more defensive stop, and either then the Knicks were going to have a chance to win it at the buzzer, or they were going to have a chance to take it to overtime and also reset in overtime. And okay, you had a rough fourth quarter, but guess what? We held it down, we took it to overtime, and now we have a shot to win it. Because the Knicks have been pretty good in overtime this year, but they didn't get to do it tonight as Trae Young put the hammer down, and that was the end of it for the Knickerbockers tonight. They got to come back Wednesday night in big fashion, because that was a disappointing way to send 18,000 people home, and the couple of million people probably around the New York area who have been playoff starved for years and years. I mean, the last time the Knicks had a playoff game, it was 2012, and this was April in 2012 with Carmelo Anthony, J.R. Smith, and all those guys on that team, Amon Shumpert, like I mentioned earlier. Guys who, as Knicks fans, it feels like decades since these two guys have been on your team. And that's the most recent playoff games you can hear. I mean, there are probably kids, if you're a 10 to 12-year-old kid, you don't remember 2012. That's not in your memory. So these are the first Knicks playoff memories that you're getting. So, if you're an older guy like me, you have been through the Knicks ringer before. I grew up with the Knicks in the '90s, and that defensive style. This was the first time since '92, '93 the Knicks have had the best defense in the league, the best defense blocking threes in the league, and opposition just really not having an easy time against this tight Knick defense. And who would have thought, a year or two ago at this time, we'd be talking about that tight Knicks defense. Well, the Knicks defense has been tight all year, but it really, really loosened up in that fourth quarter where they got outscored 36-32, and it was just enough to beat them. If it was 34-32, they'd be in overtime. If it was 32-30, the Knicks win this game, and we're not talking about this right now. But right now, in disappointing fashion, they're down 0-1. Don't get it messed up. Don't get it twisted. The Knicks losing this game is a disappointment. You can't come in here as a 4 seed, have home court, have a lead in the fourth quarter, and blow it multiple times, especially at the buzzer like that, and just letting Trae Young walk in on the paint and put that ball in there. So it's definitely disappointing. You can't sit here and say they're playing at house money. You can't sit here and say that, it's the first playoff game, this and that. You're the 4 seed, and you just lost to the 5 seed in game 1. Either way, it's not a good look. Either way, both teams have had a playoff drought. So, they're both on equal footing, and you just got to hope that they're able to put it past them and the pressure doesn't begin to mount in game 2, which I don't expect it to. I think Thibodeau is going to keep them loose, keep them focused, and keep them ready for this pivotal game 2 now. And, normally, if you listen to me on WGBB, as I've been doing Sports Talk New York and my podcast and everything like that, Coffee or Cramer if you want, check that out on Apple and Spotify and on YouTube, everywhere else you can find podcasts. But if you do listen to me, you know that my expertise, if you will, my main interest, my favorite sport is baseball. And right now I'll touch on the Yankees real quick too, because the Yankees have been just a house of fire lately. Ever since the last time I was on, we were talking about how the Yankees were off to their worst start since 1991, a year the Yankees lost 90-plus games, which hasn't happened, very often over the last 40 or 50 years. But the Yankees have just been completely on a tear. They're now currently sitting a half game out of first place. The Mets really got the Rays rolling, unfortunately for them, as the Mets got swept 3 straight. Now the Rays are on a 10-game winning streak. But Boston and Tampa Bay both at 29-19. The Yankees 28-19. And the Yankees have won 8 of their last 10. Tampa Bay has won 10 of their last 10. And Boston's won 7 of their last 10. So, and don't forget about Toronto, who's 4.5 back. They've lost 5 in a row. They're starting to struggle a little bit. But Toronto's going to be hanging in there. And this looks like, it looks like the American League East has really done a great job of catching up this year. A lot of teams and a lot of people really didn't think much of the American League East, specifically the Red Sox, too. Everybody counted out the Red Sox. People discounted, including myself. I thought the Rays were going to take a major step back this year after they traded Blake Snell to San Diego this offseason. They also just traded their starting shortstop, Willie Adames. They traded him to the Brewers for a couple of prospects. And, there must be something Tampa Bay sees in these prospects, because it seems like whoever they go out and get, these guys end up coming up big. And don't forget that Randy Arozarena, who was a postseason hero for them last year, he's still come up and he's been leading off for them this year and playing great baseball. Was just a deal in January that nobody blinked at, nobody thought twice about. So whenever the Rays go out and get guys like that, it's always for a reason. So they also had a couple of prospects coming up. They brought up one of their guys. Obviously, Wander Reyes is still, hanging out there in their minor leagues in their AAA. He's going to be, Wander Franco is going to be coming up soon at some point in the next, if by the end of the year, no doubt about it, probably before the All-Star break. And he's knocking on the door. So they're going to really have to start evaluating which guys they want to keep, which guys are expendable to them. They decided that a very good player in Willie Adames was just not worth keeping for them. They decided to turn him into a couple of arms, a couple of young arms too. So Tampa Bay, always a dangerous team to be reckoned with. Who would have thought a 10-game winning streak right now? The only thing keeping the Yankees out of second place. And the Yankees went out, and they've been doing damage lately. As they had been beating up on a couple of the lesser teams, like Corey Kluber threw a no-hitter against the Rangers. Which, by the way, too, anybody that sneezes or discounts or tries to make it seem less than that Corey Kluber no-hitter, you don't know what you're talking about, because the Rangers might not be a great team, and it may have also been the second time that they got no-hit this year, just like the other two teams who have been no-hit twice. There have been 6 no-hitters this year against 3 teams, which is just really astounding when you think about it. But the Yankees went out there now and took out the White Sox. Tony La Russa and his team finally going through the ringer. They got punched in the mouth this weekend by the Yankees, getting dominated yesterday by Cole. Chapman getting the win today, and actually on Friday too, Chapman got the win. So Chapman has really been coming up big for the Yankees. The Yankees are just playing like you'd expect them to. This is what the Yankees are. They're paid to win. This is a high payroll club. This is a team that has been that they got Luke Voit back recently. Looks like Urshela has been hitting in the middle of the lineup. He's been up there. Judge has been doing good. They obviously just lost Giancarlo Stanton, but they're going to come back around to that. And as one team is relatively healthy and doing well, there's another team in New York who is still in first place, 21-19 through 40 games. We're just about a quarter of the way through the season, as the New York Mets just keep adding to that injured list. As listen to the Mets are 21-19, like I said. They're still a game and a half up in their division. They have a 4-game series coming up with Colorado, who has been awful this year. So there's every chance in the world that on Thursday afternoon, we're talking about the 25-19 still first place New York Mets, even with all the injuries they have. But a lot has to go right between now and then for that to happen. The Rockies are still a major league team and not to be taken lightly. But a couple of good things in the horizon. Jacob deGrom, who is one of the 16. Yes, that's right. I didn't say that wrong. 16 New York Mets currently on the injured list of the 26 players they started the year with. Now listen to this list: Pete Alonso, Tommy Hunter, Taijuan Walker, Jacob deGrom, Michael Conforto, Jeff McNeil, J.D. Davis, Brandon Nimmo, Kevin Pillar, Alberto Almora, Luis Guillorme, Dylan Betances, Jose Martinez, Carlos Carrasco, Seth Lugo, and Noah Syndergaard, all on the DL or the IL right now. They used to be disabled list, now they call it the injured list. But a lot of these guys are due to come back. I mean, Jacob deGrom is going to be ready to come back at some point this week. I believe they said he's lined up for Tuesday right now against Colorado. Taijuan Walker was only supposed to miss one start, so there's a chance that he comes back either this weekend or maybe early next week. Jeff McNeil and Conforto, nobody really knows yet. Those guys are, both had hamstring trouble. They're talking about it's very similar to what Robbie Cano went through in 2019. So they could miss anywhere from 2 weeks to a month. So who knows? Pete Alonso just got put on the injured list, the 10-day IL, a couple of days ago, where it stems from him getting hit on the wrist with a pitch in St. Louis a couple of weeks back, where he hasn't looked right since then. So maybe it'll be good for him to go a couple of weeks. Tommy Hunter, another one of these guys with right side tightness. J.D. Davis is on a rehab assignment right now in Syracuse, which is the Mets AAA team. But even he was scratched from the lineup today because he had neck pain. Kevin Pillar had that just awful hit to the. He got hit in the face by a pitch, a 95-mile-an-hour fastball, shattered his nose in the field. There was blood everywhere. Just really, really terrible injury. But luckily, he's had reconstructive surgery on his face since then. And knowing this guy Pillar being the gamer he is, it wouldn't surprise me if he's due to be cleared to resume baseball activities in the next week or so. and he could be back on the field in a couple of weeks. So it's always nice when you have a guy like that on the team. Brandon Nimmo still suffering ill effects from his injured finger. Um, Alberto Almora had the big concussion where he slammed into center field in Citi Field. A lot of these guys also too. Maybe Guillorme should be back soon. Seth Lugo and Noah Syndergaard, both on rehab assignments right now in the minor leagues. Syndergaard actually today, he made his first start in Single A this past week, the day before DeGrom pitched. Now he's due to be moved up from Single A to Triple A. So his next couple of starts will be down there. He's going to be trying to get his velocity back and get himself into shape. But he was hitting 94, 95 on the gun in his first start, his first time facing live hitters on a mound since March of 2020, before he had to have Tommy John surgery. So it'd be nice to see Noah Syndergaard back out there facing live hitters again, and Seth Lugo too on the mend. So the Mets are going to be getting guys back. It's just a matter of, after losing a tough game on Saturday, a 3-1 loss, a walk-off home run from Garrett Cooper off Drew Smith. Then they had today. They had the tough loss where they just really weren't in it at all. Jordan Yamamoto gave up 5 runs in the second inning. They lost the game 5-1. These backups can only do so much. Cameron Maben doesn't look too good out there. So they're going to have some answers. And these, they call them the bench mob. And then they have these other guys too. They're calling the bench mob of the bench mob. So someone on the bench mob is going to have to keep stepping up. It's going to have to be a different person every day for the most part, as that's what the cast has been for the Mets. But, ladies and gentlemen, we're coming to the end here as I make my final lap here on Sports Talk New York, right here on WGBB. Talked a lot tonight about the hockey in the first half of the show. Had a lot of fun with Colin Stevenson. I want to thank him again for joining me on this show. If you want to follow Colin, go on your Twitter account. You can check him out at Colin S. Newsday. Always a good follow. He's always keeping tabs on. He'll be doing the Islanders for as long as they're around in the playoffs, and he's always giving you info on the Rangers as it comes in regards to their coach and everything like that. So give Colin a follow. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Cramer New York. That's Cramer, my last name, and NY. And follow all of our accounts here, WGBB. I want to thank Rob for putting me on tonight. I want to thank Brian Graves behind the glass, and the greatest lead-in of all time, Bill Donahue. And I'll be back right after Bill on D-Day, June 6th. So I'll catch you in a couple of weeks. Enjoy your weekend, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good one.
The views expressed in the previous program did not necessarily represent those of the staff, management, or owners of WGBB.